government, we are also receiving that same support. And right here in America, it's so wonderful to see the people rally around that Red Cross, that symbol of help and hope that is the same worldwide.
Shelley, before we leave, why don't you once again give the phone numbers, the website, so people can contact you if
Everybody
they want
can
to.
contact us at 1-800-HELP-NOW to make that financial contribution. That's also available in Spanish, 1-800-257-7575. Or people can contact us at redcross.org or helping.org to make that online secure contribution. If people want to give blood, 1-800-GIVE-LIFE or contact that local chapter.
Shelley McCaffrey of the Red Cross, thanks so much for joining us here
Thank
today.
you.
Our coverage of the day's events and the aftermath will continue in just a moment. Stay with CNN.
A day of unimaginable horror in the United States. A hijacked airliner smashes into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York.
Minutes later, another jet slams into the South Tower.
U.S. President George W. Bush is promising now that he's going to find the perpetrators as terrorist attacks on U.S. landmarks change the very landscape of American life.
All right, we're going to continue on here, I think. We're supposed to have a little animation there, but let's keep going.
All right, I'm Jim Clancy.
And I'm Colleen McEdwards. We're going to continue CNN's coverage of the most devastating terrorist attacks ever to take place on American soil, continuing that coverage for you right now. It is now thought that several thousand people may have perished in New York and Washington on Tuesday. This is the new New York City skyline. Let's show it to you right now with an eerie void where the World Trade Center used to be. The twin 110-story buildings collapsed Tuesday after hijacked airliners crashed first into one tower, then into the other.
A short while ago, we received pictures of that first plane that hit the North Tower.
Actually, we don't have those pictures right now. We're just getting things sorted out here. Bear with us. But 18 minutes later, in a terrorist operation of extraordinary precision, a second airliner hits the South Tower, and we've been showing you video of that from a couple of different angles. Hundreds of people ran for their lives. Debris showered lower Manhattan.
Well, you know, and as we look at the skyline now, Colleen, and see it darken, and we've heard reports that, yes, there are some rescue crews that have gone down into that area that are looking for some of the debris. There's only about 8 stories or even less remaining of World Trade Center building number 2.
CNN's Deborah Fayerick reporting even that cadaver dogs haven't been able to do their jobs there because that coating of dust is so thick.
Looking like a nuclear winter after this devastating strike, an audacious strike involving the hijacking of 4 separate airliners in one single day. For the cases that we know about, those hijackers were using knives or cardboard cutters, utility knives, which actually a razor blade, perhaps in plastic, perhaps that's the way that they got them through the security checks at airports. But an incredible day.
And actually, you know, one of the things we've been hearing later this evening is that there's even maybe cell phone calls coming from that area, so still lots to sort out in New York. But right now we want to go to CNN's Bill Hammer, who's got a look at the day's terrible events. Let's look.
8:45 a.m. East Coast time. An airliner smashes into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Minutes later, 9:03 a.m., a second jet slams into the South Tower.
You can see the people jumping out the window. They're jumping out the window right now.
Officials in New York close airports around the city. Tunnels and bridges shut down. At 9:30, President Bush tells the world the U.S. has been hit by an apparent terrorist attack. Within 10 minutes, the FAA shuts down every airport in the country. The first time this has ever happened. 9:45, an explosion at the Pentagon after another plane slams into the headquarters and the symbol of the U.S. military. 10 o'clock, New York City. The South Tower of the World Trade Center collapses, raining debris onto the street. Less than 30 minutes later, as evacuations continue, the North Tower falls.
Here it comes. I'm getting behind a car. Gotta move back.
In that same half hour, back in Washington, part of the Pentagon collapses. Further west, outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a plane crash reported in Somerset County. Plans go into effect to protect the government. Much of Washington is shut down. Federal buildings and the White House are evacuated. Members of Congress point to the possibility the attacks are the responsibility of Osama bin Laden, a Saudi millionaire blamed for other terrorist attacks. As part of emergency measures, the president cut short his trip in Florida, first making a stop in Louisiana, declaring the United States will hunt down and punish those responsible. He's later flown to Nebraska, where he convenes with security officials. 1:44 p.m., a state of emergency declared in Washington, D.C. 2 U.S. Navy aircraft carriers and 5 other warships leave Norfolk, Virginia, headed to the New York City area. The FBI says it believes the 4 missing planes were hijacked and is working on the assumption the morning's events were a coordinated terrorist attack. Then about 6 o'clock Eastern Time, explosions rock Kabul, capital city of Afghanistan. The White House denies this was any sort of retaliatory strike, but rather part of the ongoing civil war in that country. Bill Hemmer, CNN, reporting.
We have all witnessed over and over again, in person or even on television in the United States or around the world, the incredible images of the tragedy that unfolded in Washington and New York City this day. Some of us are better than others at expressing the emotions that those images draw out of us. One of those who is good at it indeed is Garrick Utley. He joins us now from his city, New York.
Well, Jim, I feel like most of our colleagues here today, and even those of you who've been watching this for what now, nearly 16 hours, what can words really say? The fact is, we've been watching those images, those pictures, and perhaps we forget that behind each camera and each image is a camera person, a man or a woman who was there near the Pentagon or here in Lower Manhattan. They were standing there. They were on the front line today, and they didn't flinch. What we want to do now is share again some of these images, but also with the words, the thoughts, and the experiences of that person who took those pictures. He's camera operator Tom Muccio, and here's what he saw and what he lived through today.
When I started filming the Trade Center towers this morning, I thought I had woken up in a nightmare. The flames, all these people running, trying to get out of Manhattan already. Then the first tower collapsed. Then day turned to night. A man turned up covered in soot, still carrying his briefcase. People were crying. Some just stood not knowing where to go. I kept thinking about my family, my colleagues, whether they were all right, whether I would see them again. It felt like the end of the world. Then I looked and the second tower collapsed. It was gone. It looked like an exodus. People were coming out of nowhere covered in towels. A barman closed his bar in front of us. Today there would be no business as usual, although somebody started to clean his fire escape around Wall Street. After we saw this woman call her family, we called ours too to let them know we were okay. People stopped to tell us what they saw.
People running, their hair on fire. People were jumping out of the World Trade Center. Jumping out because they don't know what to do. So, I mean, they're dead by doing that.
This man was taking this boy away from the scene.
His classmates, their parents work in the big building.
This couple was reunited and fine. We were invited into a hotel on Wall Street which was serving food in a makeshift room. We met the lucky ones too. This man overslept and he didn't get to work on time. He worked on the 78th floor of the World Trade Center.
From what I understand, my whole office is dead. Everybody died up there, jumped out, or burned.
When we got to Wall Street, the stock exchange was closed. The police were blocking our way. We found a policeman 2 blocks away from the World Trade Center who was guarding a piece of one of the planes. He was waiting for a forensic team to come and pick it up. I felt the nightmare was just carrying on. When we got closer to the World Trade Center, policemen were getting more and more nervous. Then we finally saw it, through the smoke. The remains of the World Trade Center looked like a broken fence. It felt like covering a volcano eruption, dust everywhere, inches thick, pieces of paper covering the ground from the buildings. Again, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Broadway. It felt like a very bad horror movie. On the way back to the office on the empty highway uptown, I thought about all this senselessness, about these terrible acts, and about the freedom to do evil.
The pictures, the thoughts, the experiences this day of camera operator Tom Muccio. Truly one of the real reporters on the front line of this tragedy. Back to you, Jim and Colleen.
All right, Gary Cutley, thank you for that. Well, we want to show you once again some of the video in case you've just tuned in, video that is coming to light as the day wears on. That an angle of the second plane as it plowed into the World Trade Center. That videotape, perhaps because the cameraman was trapped down there in lower Manhattan and couldn't make his way out, just coming to us now. Terrifying, awesome, so much pain in a picture of what happened this day in New York City, and indeed the pictures have been nonstop.
Yeah, and that being United Airlines Flight 175, 65 people on board that plane. Jean Meserve is watching things in Washington for us tonight. Let's go to her for the very latest. Jean?
Colleen, President Bush started his day in Florida, but returned to the White House just as the sun was setting. The arrival designed to show that the United States leadership will not be cowed. A short while later, Mr. Bush addressed the American people and the world from the Oval Office. Let's listen to his full address.
Good evening. Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices, secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror. The pictures of airplanes flying into buildings, fires burning, huge structures collapsing, have filled us with disbelief, terrible sadness, and a quiet, unyielding anger. These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong. A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve. America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world, and no one will keep that light from shining. Today, our nation saw evil, the very worst of human nature, and we responded with the best of America, with the daring of our rescue workers, with the caring for strangers and neighbors who came to give blood and help in any way they could. Immediately following the first attack, I implemented our government's emergency response plans. Our military is powerful, and it's prepared. Our emergency teams are working in New York City and Washington, D.C. to help with local rescue efforts. Our first priority is to get help to those who have been injured and to take every precaution to protect our citizens at home and around the world from further attacks. The functions of our government continue without interruption. Federal agencies in Washington, which had to be evacuated today, are reopening for essential personnel tonight and will be open for business tomorrow. Our financial institutions remain strong, and the American economy will be open for business as well. The search is underway for those who are behind these evil acts. I've directed the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to find those responsible and to bring them to justice. We will make no distinction